Hey guys, what's going on? Kulprit here, and today I want to talk about transitioning to Battlefield 4 from Battlefield 3 and some of the things that I found really helpful. And as far as changing my mindset, it's almost like I'm establishing a new set of fundamentals. You know, I had this thing, or mantras, or just principles of how I played Battlefield 3 that helped make me a better player, a more consistent player, because consistency is a big thing. And now I'm kind of adapting those. Some of them are carrying over just fine, but some aren't, and some are taking some, changing and old dog, new tricks. There's a joke there somewhere. But as I've told you guys, I was having a really hard time. Real talk, straight up, I was struggling that first week. I was having a crisis of confidence. And as you know, with everything, once your confidence is shot, it really is hard to turn that around. All the stability issues and crashes aside, everything I saw at Battlefield 3 I really, really liked. I liked the gunplay changes, the map design changes, all the variety and the class balance and things. These are all things I was encouraged by, and I was really excited to get into that and play the heck out of it over the next year or, even further. The problem is, I was having concerns that, I liked what I saw, but I didn't like how I was playing at all. I couldn't win a gunfight for anything. I was putting up 5 and 20s. They were bad, and I was starting to have real legitimate concerns that maybe this game isn't for me. I've always, lagged behind in accuracy, and my twitch skill isn't great, but I was always able to rely on outplaying people, getting away, surviving, kind of counteracting tactically, and just outthinking people. And as we know, with the quick deaths in Battlefield 4, that kind of is a little more difficult, but I've kind of found a way to adapt to that. And the first thing, as I want to talk about, just some things that I've kind of adapted to my fundamentals for Battlefield 4 that make my life a lot better, make me more successful, because as I've said in previous videos, I did have a little bit of an epiphany moment about last week, about the 8 or 9 hour mark, where, obviously that makes sense. I've started to learn the maps a little more, gotten a little comfortable at the pace of play, and I got my settings dialed in and stuff. So first things first is I want to talk about outthinking players. I say that all the time. I talk about that a lot in my videos. In Battlefield 3, I was more of a reactionary player. I would run around, I would look for enemies, engage them, whatever. And when I would take damage, that's when I would kick in. I would escape, I would find cover, I would, outmaneuver them, outthink them possibly, and I would a lot of times win that engagement. I would come back from behind almost. Where Battlefield 4, you can't really do that. You have to be thinking beforehand. You have to be proactive. It's very hard to be reactionary in Battlefield 4 right now. I'm hoping it'll change, but right now with that time to kill and that really wonky hit notification, a lot of times your first indication that you're in trouble is too late and you're dead. So you have to be proactive. You have to be thinking. So first, let's talk about some settings that I think everybody should be aware of and know that some things have changed in Battlefield 4 fundamentally from Battlefield 3. Not the first one that I found pretty important is the FOV and the ADS change. Now in Battlefield 3, everybody could put the FOV up as high as they want. I know a lot of guys that played at the max. I still stayed pretty low personally. I always just favored that upfront accuracy, seeing people directly in front of me, because I always felt like somebody, if they were off in my periphery, chances are I was going to be in a bad way against them anyway. But it was a personal taste, and the difference here is that it didn't matter what your FOV was when your weapon was down, because as soon as you would ADS, everybody would go to, I believe it was 70, maybe it was something different, but everybody had the same FOV when you were aimed down sights. Battlefield 4 is quite different than that. Battlefield 4, as you notice, if you go in and you look, you might notice it now if you haven't already, whatever your FOV is. So if you put a really high FOV, you're seeing a lot of map, and you're going to argue that you see a lot out of your peripherals, that's fine. But when you ADS now, you don't get that zoom in the same as if I do, and I have my FOV at 70. Now I'm currently playing at 80. So that means when I ADS, I'm going to actually be able to see a lot more accurately. I'm going to be literally shooting at a bigger target than you. Now that might not be a big deal for some of you guys. Some of the guys I know that just have incredible aim, not a big deal. For me, that's a big deal. I struggle with my accuracy. I need the bigger target. There's an old man joke in there somewhere, I know. But keep this in mind, guys. It doesn't just mean to automatically turn up your FOV as high as you can. Keep in mind that you're going to take some, you're going to be at a disadvantage to the guy with a lower FOV. When you're at, say, a medium range engagement, you're both shooting at each other, aimed down sights. That guy at 75, 80 is going to be shooting at a bigger target than you are at 100, 105. Keep that in mind. It's a big fundamental change. Not a lot of people are aware of that, and it does make quite a big difference in your gameplay. Another setting I want you to fool around with is network smoothing, also known as interpolation. I believe I said that right. Basically what this does is the client kind of filling in the blanks. When it misses some information or whatever, it'll kind of predict what's going on. The best way for me to explain this is basically In Battlefield 3, when people would mantle over objects and things, if you had the network smoothing factor all the way up, the guy would mantle. It would look really awesome. It would look like, wow, that's great. But if you notice, if you ever shot at a guy mantling, you would never get hit markers. You could dump a clip into him, and you would never hit him. And that's because if you turn the smoothing all the way down, and you literally saw the raw like gameplay, what the guy's doing, he would run up, start his mantle, and then the client and the game would actually almost teleport him to 5 feet past the object. And that's literally how the game worked. It almost like teleported people. If you look in Battlefield 4, the tops of ladders are a lot like this. But anyway, that's why you wouldn't get any hit markers, because in reality, the guy wasn't there. The client would fill in the blanks and say, well, this is what it should look like. Even though I don't have any data that he's here, let me make it look like he's here. And it was very frustrating. So network smoothing to 0, you're going to see the raw, exactly the information your client's getting pretty much. If you put it all the way up, you're going to see kind of the pretty smoothed over gameplay, which looks great, but it can be really frustrating when you play. And a lot of people are theorizing this is adding to kind of the information latency between hit notifications and things. I haven't seen a huge jump in this, but I know a lot of people are. So make sure you play with this. One of the rule of thumb I've seen is if you typically get a ping of 30 or less to servers, try it at 0. Move it up to like 5 or 10% if you're anywhere from like 50 to 100 in that area. Just tweak it a little bit, but have it on the lower side, at least for now, until they figure out a lot of these issues. You might see a little bit of improvement. Now, aside from settings, I wanted to just talk about basically some tactics and some strategies and some kind of principles of how you're going to play the game. Now, the pace of play is much different in Battlefield 4 than Battlefield 3. It feels much quicker because there's a lot more going on, but Battlefield 4 should be played slower, in my opinion. The pace is slower because you die much faster. You have to be much more careful, so remember that. Don't be rushing around wide open, just slower, methodically. Keep cover always available to you. You always need a bailout plan. Usually, in Battlefield 3, you could go, all right, there's 1 hit, there's 2 hit, there's 3 hit, shit, I gotta go, and then you get cover, and then you can run away, because you knew 4 or 5 hits, you're gonna go down. Battlefield 4, not the case. There's 1 hit, retreat. Do not wait. If you take damage, get the heck out of there. Reassess, get to secure area, and a lot of times you'll get the kill because the guy's gonna get bloodthirsty and come after you. That is a fundamental difference, for my play anyway, in Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3. 1 shot of damage, and I am retreating for cover. Battlefield 3, I didn't have to do that. I would bunny hop, go prone. I'd be running down the middle of the street, and I know there's 1 hit, I'm okay. 2 hits, yeah, okay. It's getting dicey at 3. I gotta bail. That's not the case in Battlefield 4. Remember that. Retreat at first damage in Battlefield 4, and you're probably gonna always be much better off. Basically, what I'm saying is wager on the safe side. Live to fight another battle, and you're gonna do a lot better overall. Play smart. Another thing, spot enemies. It's really much harder. I can't quite tell if this is just new game syndrome. It's much harder to see people on these maps. They're much more detailed, much more rich. A lot of foliage and leaves and jungle and things. As we know, a lot of different styles, and that's going to get even more crazy, I think, in China Rising when we literally do get into the jungle. It's much harder to see people, and people's eyes aren't as trained, and so this will help you, but it'll also help your teammates a lot more spot those enemies. Yeah, you're gonna be surprised at how often you surprisingly find an enemy that was hiding in a bush you didn't even realize was there, but because you were spamming that key, you found him and you got a cheap kill. Remember, always be spotting. This one does kind of transfer over from Battlefield 3, but the reasons are a little bit different, and that's because it's just much harder to see people right now. One other tidbit, there's a big difference now. Battlefield 3, it was all about the Cobra sight, the red dot sight. Pretty much those were king of the mountain. I find myself finding a lot of utility in Battlefield 4 on the holoscopes. There's just a little bit more of a magnification. Again, it's harder to see people. It just makes it a little easier, especially with the FOV and the ADS change. You might find it's pretty handy to have that one-time zoom or even 2 or 4. Those types. Don't be just so averse to them in Battlefield 3. People rarely touch the ACOGs and even the holos a little bit. Sometimes it's worth that trade-off of the slower ADS time to get a little bit of a magnification. Might just help you get that kill. As we know, it can be a lot harder to see people, as I've said. And these things are just giving you a little edge. Now, I still do prefer the red dot sights, but on some maps, in some situations, you should really consider maybe a holo at least, or maybe even a little bit higher. Now, last two, we're just going to kind of wrap this up again. It's just kind of general fundamental differences. Stay alive. Now, you're going to say that's a principle in every FPS game. Yes, of course it is. But with the field upgrade system and how that's working with the perks, it is even more critical for you to stay alive. They actually do quite help. If you're 3 or 4 levels in, if you can keep that going, every single gunfight you enter, you're going to have an advantage. Now, at the least, maybe it'll be a push because the other team does as well. But some guy on the team should always be aware, and you should always be communicating this if you're in comms. of who the last guy is up, and stay alive, get secure. They do have the big text kind of warning on your screen now, so make sure you don't just disregard that. It is pretty important. Stay alive. Let your friendlies spawn in on you, and you're going to be much better off for it. And lastly, that goes kind of hand in hand with that, it's all about awareness, really. Check your health. The hit notification is wonky here. It's a little laggy. Cannot rely on being told you're being hit. I can't tell you how many times I'm running around and I'm seeing medics who have the ability to heal themselves running around at half to 2/3 health. And that's not because they're lazy. That's not because they're running from an enemy. It's because they have no clue that they're hurt. So make sure, everybody's in the habit of playing, looking to the left, bottom left, looking at their minimap, right? Well, make sure you take a glance every now and then at your bottom right, too, because the visual and audio cues are a little off right now in Battlefield 4. As we all know, it's well documented. So just do it manually. Check your health. Make sure you're not hurt, because a lot of these gadgets and health and things are a little slower to do, at least with the little single-person med packs. Are a little harder to heal, so you have to go a little bit more out of your way. You can't just be running and throw a med pack and kind of get the benefits. Be a little more conscious of it. Be a little more aware. Again, it's all about being aware, really, in Battlefield 4. And you're going to play much better, guys. I'm having a lot of fun since I've kind of put it all together, so to speak. And I think you will, too. Please, I'm going to probably do another one of these, at least another one of these, as I continue on. If you guys have some tips you'd like for me to share with everybody that just kind of make the game make more sense to you and kind of, unlock it and make your game come through and you're just performing a lot better, please share them in the comments for me. Other people can read them. And then, of course, I'm going to cherry pick the best ones and do another follow-up video. And it's probably a week or two as I play the game more and become more experienced with it. Like always, guys, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope you're having a good time. All the hardware and stability issues aside, I'm really enjoying Battlefield 4. Looking forward to playing it a heck of a lot more, as well as sharing a lot of videos with you guys too. Thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you soon. Take care.